It's been almost 2 decades since we started our journey to educate and help you take action so you may better manage your financial future. Our goal is to help you accomplish your life's purpose. This podcast reveals financial tips, strategies, and insights that will help you to set your financial goals and guide you along the way. This is Managing Your Financial Future, brought to you by the advisors at Lucia Capital Group. Oh, welcome back. Thank you so much. Oh boy, it's podcast time again. Johnny Dean here, your podcast host. Thank you so much for joining us, all your regular listeners. Nice to know we have so many people out there who not only listen, but respond from time to time. Here is Professor Rick Plum. Say hello, Rick.
Hello. Hello, Rick. You want me to say hello? No, don't do that.
No, don't do that. That's too obvious. Rick is a certified financial planner, CFP professional. I've finally gotten that terminology right after all this time. But I thank you for being with us and doing the advisory type stuff. I said it's nice to get feedback from people because we do from time to time have events at the Lucia Capital Group Center here, where we happen to be at the big broadcast center. And this place is huge, by the way. But it's all us, you know. There's nobody else here in the building. I mean, the whole building.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say, the podcast room isn't...
Oh, no, the broadcast center itself is just 2 rooms. But we do have a very nice TV studio.
Oh, wow, it is very nice.
So people come by and they like to give... We love to give tours of the place because we've got a golf simulator out there. We've got a...
That's what people come by for.
They do. But we're in a former bank building, which has the vault, you know, the original vault from 50 years ago is still there, and we have meetings in there, and it's kind of fun. So anyway, people enjoy coming by, and we get to see more people than maybe we used to. And more often than not, when they see the podcast room and the radio studio and the TV studio, it occurs to them, they say, oh, man, yeah, sure, I listen to you guys. Yeah, I enjoy that. And then after a while, oftentimes, especially if they're talking to you, Professor Plum, they say, you know, I've always had a question about something, and I wonder if you guys can deal with this on the air. And so this is going to be one of those topics here.
Okay.
That I wanted to get into. And it has to do with the person asked, and I doing this off the top of my head, but it boiled down to this. How do you know when you should put money into a tax-deferred account, such as a 401k, or a Roth? For example, you know, you want to put money away.
So you've figured out you've got the discipline to save, whether it's coming out of your paycheck or your pocket, into a traditional or an IRA or a 401k, you're going to start saving, or you're currently saving.
Yeah.
Should you do it with the traditional tax-deductible 401k IRA or the Roth 401k IRA? Correct. And or just straight Roth. I mean, I guess what they wanted to know is, how do you know when it's better to take the tax deduction now and pay them later, or take the pay the taxes now and have tax-free growth? And a lot of, I kind of did a little bit of research on this just to see what other people are saying. And the general consensus was that half the people said it's better to tax-free is always better, and you should always do the Roth if you can. And then the other half said, no, you should do the 401k. So since there's like half and half that I found, I wanted to get the definitive answer. Well, and like anything else in financial planning, the answer is it depends.
It depends, yeah.
And it's very specific to that individual, because there's not only the financial aspect, but there's the emotional aspect of paying taxes today that some people just, even if they say, yeah, I'm going to be in a higher bracket when I retire, but I don't want to pay the taxes today. You know, but it has a lot to do with where you're at today on the tax brackets and where you think you might be when you ultimately start pulling money out of these accounts, usually in retirement.
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of finding out where you are today is relatively easy.
Strictly from a numbers standpoint, if you take all emotion out of it and all investor preference out of it, which you never would do, but let's just say if you did, it would be a matter of, as you just said, well, you're going to pay tax. If you want to pay tax on the money now and put it in the Roth side, let's say, then you better hope that you're going to be in a higher tax bracket later on, equal or greater. And not a lower tax bracket, because if I'm going to pay taxes on the money now in like the 22% bracket, but I take it out, later on after age 59 or 65 or whatever, and I'm in a 12% bracket, say, then I paid too much in taxes.
Right.
So that's strictly from a numbers standpoint.
But the problem with the numbers aspect is, as I started to say, it's easy to figure out where you are on the tax bracket today. how much is it going to save me or cost me, depending upon which way you want to look at it, if I were to take this X number of dollars that I'm going to contribute to a retirement plan this year, and I can get a tax deduction. It's fairly easy to figure out what you're saving. You look at your federal income, you calculate where you are on the tax brackets, and you know what it's, you can find out very quickly how much you saved in taxes by putting the money away today, both federal and state if you live in a state with an income tax. The problem is then, okay, and now I know the cost. What's the benefit?
Potential benefit.
Because maybe you're 30, maybe you're 40, maybe you're even 50. What is the tax bracket going to be when you're 65, 70, 75, 80? It's a much harder decision or calculation because who knows what taxes are going to look like then? You don't.
Right now, we don't know what taxes are going to look like 2 years from now, and that's not. I'm being
3 years.
Well, where are we? 23. Okay, through 25. So 3 years from right now, we don't know.
Yeah,
we might know in a year.
We have an idea, but it could change. I mean, that's when the Tax Cut Jobs Act of 2017, the revamping of the tax code expires, and we go back to the old tax situation that we had prior to 2018. So that happens without Congress doing something in 2026, basically. So we know that that's going to, we think that that's going to be there. I shouldn't say no because we don't know.
We do not know.
So that's the hard part. It's a matter of where we're going to, but what we can do is we can look at, okay, where are we today? Not just in our tax bracket, but how much have we been able to amass in savings already? At times, it makes sense to do the tax deductible one. At times, it makes sense. If you're 45, 50 years of age and you've already built up a couple $1 million in 401ks because you started earlier and you were building and you were saving and you were putting money away and you've already got a fairly nice deferred IRA. And you're looking at, well, I don't have any pensions. And so you're looking at my retirement, my income may be equal to or greater than what I'm making now, but it's all going to be coming from tax deferred. That leads me to say, well, let's see about taking and doing some Roth money. On the other hand, if you're 50 years old and maybe you're finding yourself starting over, maybe you've never had a chance to start in the first place, and you're just getting to the point where you're, starting to save for retirement. And the idea is that if you're in the lower income tax brackets, the tax deduction isn't saving you very much, so you might as well do a Roth. But that's not always true. Maybe, you're 50, 55 years old and you can start saving, 5, 6, 8, 10 grand a year for the next 10, 15 years. What is your deferred balance going to grow to over that period of time? Maybe you've got 200, 300,000 in IRA at that point. Well, what are you going to be pulling? 12,000 a year off of it? I'm going to lower tax bracket in retirement. In fact, at that level, I may be in a 0% income tax bracket taking money out of the IRA. And at that level, it won't even affect the taxes on my Social Security. So the tax deduction today, which maybe I'm only in the 12% tax bracket today, is still higher than what the cost is by taking it out later, because there are people that are taking money out of their IRAs in a tax-free environment.
Sure, there are ways to do that.
IRA,
traditional IRAs.
Because their income isn't high enough to trigger an income tax, and it's not high enough to trigger a tax on their Social Security benefit. But that has to do with what is my projected balance going to look like. So if I'm going to have, 200,000 or 300,000 max by the time I retire, that deduction today is probably more lucrative, more beneficial to me than doing a Roth IRA where I'm going to get tax-free treatment in the future, because it's going to be tax-free either way. But on the other side, that other person I talked about, where they've got they've already built up a huge tax-deferred account by the time they're 45, 50.
And they're going to have a big tax bill at some point.
So maybe at this point, they start redirecting their new savings towards the Roth so they can build up a big Roth account so they have access to some tax-free money at retirement and obviously their taxable money. And
even if they're in a relatively high tax bracket?
Well, yeah, even if they're in a relatively high tax bracket, and they're going to be in the same or higher bracket when they retire because they've done such a good job. We're not rewarding success in this case. We're going to tax success.
So it doesn't come down to any rule of thumb, because I started the conversation with, well, if you're in an equal or greater tax bracket now than you will be in retirement, then you should do
that's what I was getting to. I mean, like I said, but it's not necessarily obvious to some people. The first, the person that was 50 and had no savings, they were in a higher tax bracket today than they were projected to be in the future. But it wasn't that easy to see. They're going to have similar income between their Social Security and pension as they did now, but they're still in a lower bracket retirement. Where the person that built up a big portfolio, it potentially is going to be in a higher tax bracket. So in that case, higher bracket in retirement, And that's the rule of thumb. Higher bracket in retirement than you are now, do the Roth if you can do it. Lower tax bracket in retirement than you are now, do the traditional. But that also means that you understand tax brackets, taxability of Social Security, and how taxes actually work either now or in the future.
Well, and how much you're going to have, and how much you're going to need,
and what state you're going to retire in.
That's the other thing, and we don't even get into state taxes. But yes, you do have to consider that.
We see people that are working in states like California that has a fairly high state income tax, and then they're going to retire to Nevada, Wyoming, Florida, Texas, one of the states without an income tax. That's part of the equation, because now, by definition, you just drop 9, 10, 11, 12% in difference on taxes for most people.
That is true. That is true. So now, but people listening, they don't necessarily want to hear what we just told them, which is it depends. And there are many factors.
I don't want to hear my doctor say you got to eat less to lose weight either. Doesn't mean that's not the right thing to hear for them to tell me.
Well, yeah. So I think what we should at least offer is something that we've talked about before that has to do with your 401k at work and a Roth IRA. Now, we often recommend for people to, and you've said this before, I'll let you talk about it, but especially if you have a match a 401k match at work, talk about maybe what people can do in general, because we don't know where our tax bracket is going to be. I have no idea.
Okay. Well, so in this case, the first part of this discussion was, do I do tax deferred and then pay taxes in retirement, or do I do Roth where I pay taxes now and have tax free in retirement? That's one discussion. Now the discussion is going to revolve around, okay, I've decided that I want to do tax deferred.
In other words, my 401k,
right? Or
IRA.
Maybe I have an IRA, or I've either decided I want to do tax deferred, or I've decided I want to do Roth. Do I use 401k or IRA in that case? So now we have to look at which one is a better fit for me. I've made the decision it's going to be tax deferred, or I've made the decision it's going to be Roth. Do I use Roth IRA or 401k? Now, there's an advantage and disadvantage to each. Obviously, the 401k has a significantly higher contribution limit. I mean, for it's what, 22,500? It's 22,500 this year for the youngsters of the crowd, people under the age of 50 this year, and it's 22. It's 30,000 for people 50 and older this year. That's a pretty high contribution limit for a lot of people.
Wow.
And the IRAs are still 65. Well, they went up a little bit, but they're 6,500 for under 50 and 7,500 for 50 and older. So obviously, from a limit standpoint, the 401k goes. And the other thing that the 401k offers in many cases is, if I put $1 in, my employer puts some money in. You don't get that with an IRA. So there is some advantage to the 401k. So what we look at is, in many cases, definitely, if you have a matching contribution, don't lose out on the match. Got to get the match.
Well, it's, as everybody will tell you, and it's true, it's free money, or it's money, it's your money.
It's money they have said is part of your employment.
Part of your compensation.
We will pay you this if you work here.
Yeah.
Don't give it up.
If you can.
If you can afford to.
If you can afford to.
Yeah.
And, I would think, based on what you've said in the past, which is that if you think you can't put any money away in let's say your 401k, start with something small like 1%.
Yeah. I mean, and I like the rules now that are automatic auto-enroll 3%.
Does that come with the Secure 2.0?
Yes.
That was part of it. You have to opt out.
Yeah. You're in until you say no.
Yes.
And if
it's negative consent is what they call it.
And you can always say no later, but if you start up and you have it taken out, you're probably not going to notice it much. Now, 3% is not going to get the job done, but it's a start. Plus, if there's a match, it helps in that area. So the idea is to go to the 401k and do the matching contribution. But now the rest of it comes back to, it depends. How old are you? What are you trying to accomplish? If you're on the younger side, doing the Roth IRA has a lot of advantage because it's very flexible.
So in other words, take it up to the match at the 401k. And then at that point, if you have still more you can save, you may want to consider going over and adding to the Roth.
Right. Instead of maxing it. So maybe a very common matching contribution is they'll match 50% of whatever you put in up to 6% of your salary. So, but once you get over 6%, they're not going to match anymore, or X percent. So do that with them. And then you say, well, I want to put more away. If you have the discipline, maybe use the Roth IRA at that point, assuming you qualify for it, because the Roth IRA has a lot of flexibility that the 401k doesn't. especially younger people. I've seen this happen quite a bit with younger people where they can build up their Roth IRAs and use it for that first-time home purchase. You can use all of your contributions. So you've been putting in $5,000 a year for the past 5, 6, 7 years. So you've got that 25, 30, 35,000 of contributions in the plan, and maybe it's grown by $15,000, $20,000. So you've got a decent sized Roth already. You can use most of that in that example as a down payment, tax free.
Yeah, that's flexibility in the Roth that, say, a 401k really doesn't offer.
Because you can take out your contributions for any reason at any time without a penalty, without a tax. And if the Roth is at least 5 years old and you're buying your first home, as defined by a first-time home purchase, you can take out $10,000 of the earnings, tax-free and penalty-free.
First-time home purchase is any home that you bought and you haven't owned a home for the last 2 tax years?
You haven't owned a home you lived in.
You've lived in, yeah.
You could have owned a house as long as you didn't live in it. Maybe you had a rental.
That's true.
So, as long as you haven't lived in a home for at least 2 years. And it's a $10,000 lifetime, but both spouses can take the 10. That's great for that. So,
it is.
You've got a lot more flexibility. You have more flexibility in investing, which is both good and bad, depending upon who you are. Why are we going to do now? Not everybody can qualify for a Roth IRA. There are income limits. Married, single, had a household. If your income is too high, you can't contribute directly to a Roth IRA. But there's also deductibility limits on a traditional IRA.
Is it still $100,000?
No, it was never $100,000. That was the conversion limit.
No, for the deductibility of a traditional IRA. What is it?
It varies from married. I don't have that one memorized, but I can look it up real quick if you want me to.
Phase out for deducting 116 married to 136.
Yeah.
What was the $100,000?
The $100,000,
whether it was married or single, was that
was the conversion limit from 1998 to 2010.
Okay. Anyway, all right.
But not everybody contribute to a traditional IRA and deduct that. So you do need to know the rules about what options are available to you based on your overall income, your filing status, and things of that nature. Yeah. You even have a choice of doing a deductible traditional IRA. Do you have the choice of contributing directly to a Roth IRA? And so then we have to figure, well, if you haven't got that choice, what other choices do we have?
Well, it's interesting. Now, before we go on, I had a couple of basic questions that occurred to me as people have asked over the years. First of all, is there an income limit for a 401k contribution?
No, I mean, Jeff Bezos, if they have a 401k, he could contribute. I think he's 50 plus. He could put 30,000.
I'm pretty sure he is.
Yeah. If he's 50 years old, he could put 50. Now, the income limits there are no income limits. You just have to have the income.
Companies have certain rules that go as far as highly compensated employees and all that, but that's not on the employee side. Now, here's the other question that people have asked. You brought this up a minute or two ago that talked about taking your contributions, your 401k contributions up to the company match.
No, I talked about taking. Making.
Yeah, making it.
I thought you said taking. I'm sorry.
All right, taking it up to the company match.
Okay.
Putting in money and taking that up to the company match. That's what I should have said, yes. So we're talking about putting money in up to whatever your company match. And a common match, you said, is 50 cents on the dollar, 50% up to 6% of pay. This might seem like a basic question, but we get this a lot. And that is, how do I know? What does that mean, 50% on the dollar up to 6% of pay? So if you would just take an example.
You're making $100,000.
Just to make the math easy.
Right. And you decide that you can afford to put in $500 a month out of your paycheck into the 401k. So $500 a month over the course of a year is $6,000. That is 6% of your pay. The company will kick in $3,000. They'll usually match. So when you
in other words, $250
each time you put in $500, they put in $250. Most companies do it that way. Some will just do it at the end of the year. So you've decided you want to do $6,000. They're going to put in $3,000. But maybe you decided you can afford to do more and you want to do $15,000 into the 401k. Well, they're still going to cap in that example with a 50% match up to 6%. The most they're going to put in is 50% of the 6% limit, $3,000. So if you put in $2,000, they'll put in $1,000. You put in $4,000, they'll put in $2,000. You put in $10,000, you're capped at $6,000. They'll only put in 3 at the most.
So what you need to do is take is it your gross salary before your...
It's your wages, yes.
It's your wages. So pre anything.
Pre everything except for like healthcare. Those come off the top.
Okay, so take the healthcare off the top, figure out what your salary is, and take 6% of that number, right?
Uh-huh.
So take your health insurance deductions off the top.
Don't even bother with that. If it is 6%, just take 6%.
All right, 6% of your...
If you're making 100...
Of your gross.
Yeah, just put in the 6%.
6%
Put in 7, 8, 9, 10. But if you want to start at that number, if your match is 50%,
if you want to know what the company is going to match...
So find out what the match is, because... That is a common one, but it's not the only one out there.
No, but it's that's the way you figure it. So use the numbers that your company
and just put in their 6%.
Well, imagine that though, $100,000. If your company is offering you
an extra $3,000,
tax deferred,
yeah,
I mean, seems like a pretty good deal.
And all you have to do is take $6,000 out of pocket A and put it into pocket B.
Now, pocket B has a lock on it.
Yeah, it has a lock on it. You can't get to it
with a pretty hefty penalty for taking it out. But it's a good discipline to have.
It's a wonderful discipline to have. And then if you do start saving at the matching contribution, you say, okay, I can afford to do this $500 out of my $100,000 salary. Next year, open enrollment time when it's available, make it 7%.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to notice it very much.
Well,
and make it. That's another thing that came out of the Secure Act 2.0. They're adding auto escalators, meaning you're going to auto enroll, have to opt out, and auto escalators. So they're starting at 3%. That's
you have to opt out of an auto escalator?
Yeah, and then the auto escalator is each year it's going to go up by 1%.
Wow.
Or whatever. I can't remember the exact numbers, but so I start at 3, next year it'll be 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And I think that's wonderful because that incrementalism really helps, and it lets you. Like putting your big toe in the pool, then you get up to the ankles a little bit at a time. You get used to it. Get you used to it.
Well, and it's only a good thing. I really go back to the mid '80s mid to late '80s when our company, the radio station, offered the 401k for the first time, and I was 23, whatever, and I said I'm not making that much. I don't want to forget it. I don't want to do that, and I didn't for
a long time.
Well, long time. I mean, long time meaning like my entire employment there.
Yeah.
I never did it because I thought I can't afford, which would have been dumb because I could have started low.
Well, lower than we are today by a long shot.
Well, yeah, but if I'd had an automatic where I have to opt out, I probably would have done it.
You probably would not have opted out.
I would not have opted out. I would have said, okay, well, just tell me what my net check is. Yeah. And that's one of the nice things about things like 401ks that come off the top, and why it's nice that health insurance comes off the top, and another reason why taxes are withheld off the top.
Right, and that's
because you don't see it.
We talked about earlier the pros and cons of 401k versus IRA, whether it be Roth or 401k or Roth IRA, whatever the case. The fact that it's taken out of your check and you're not, once you sign up for it or auto sign up for the first time, you don't have to do anything again, and you don't notice it. Unless you look at your pay stub, which I'm guessing most people don't do.
No, because you have to go online these days. You used to get it with every check, and you could see, but we don't get checks anymore.
You don't even know you're doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're doing an IRA, it's coming out of your checking account, and you notice it. You're looking at your balance one day, it's X, and the next day it's, hey, where'd that money go?
Well, it's true. I know people who, when they start a job, especially younger people, and they say, well, oh, look at my check. This is what I'm getting paid. And they kind of revolve their lifestyle around that, And then they say, well, I'm a little short, so maybe I'll get a part-time job. They don't think too much about the stuff that came off the top.
Right.
And when it comes to saving, that's a good thing.
And that's why 401ks do work. Whether they're better than pensions, that's a whole different world.
Well, they probably are, but...
Well, for some people, yes, some people no. But the fact that once it's in place, especially with these new auto escalators and things, it will help people save for retirement. It just makes it easier because you don't notice it's happening, and you don't have to have the discipline every month to make sure that the money is in your checking account to be able to go into your IRA account.
Now, I think you alluded to this, but if you make more than the Roth limits, but you'd still like to take advantage of tax-free, there are ways to do that still.
Potentially, yes. I mean, we do have what they call the Roth two-step or the backdoor Roth. Mm-hmm. And thanks to a lot of legislation that's happened in the last several years, For a while, we were thinking, and Congress was actually talking about taking that away, putting limits on the Roth two-step. And lately, though, they've been more advocating for Roth contributions more than anything else. So Congress has been saying, we want more Roth. And they've been pushing.
They're saying, we think you should take more advantage of Roth.
Right. We think that we want to make Roth contributions more advantageous, more available than traditional. Probably because they want tax money today, but that's a different thing. But it's a matter of so we're thinking that they're not going to talk about, at least not for a while, taking away the Roth options off the table.
There's no reason to do that.
Right. And I think that if they do it, because most people do like the idea of the Roth, that it'd become very unpopular for anybody who, from a Congress member who voted for taking away Roth options, and that they get voted out. Hopefully.
Well, you would think, but I'll tell you what, I've seen some of the nuttiest proposals over the last 4 or 5 years.
And those people didn't get
And those
voted
people
out.
are still there. I mean, I've seen people
Idiots.
who belong in a rubber room that are sitting out there.
Well,
and
that's pretty much everybody that runs. So how do you pick? Okay,
Well,
everybody
that's
that's
not
running
it.
belongs in a rubber room. How do you choose between the one that's in the 3-inch padded thick or the one that's in the 4-inch padded?
Well,
thick
I
wall?
would disagree. They're not all like that. I've met a few of them, and they've got some smarts, but there are some real nut jobs that have gotten in that are making these weird proposals. They're going to go nowhere. But I don't want people to make plans based on these completely ridiculous ideas.
But for people that want to do a Roth IRA, maybe their household income is over the limit, and they don't like their 401k options, or they've maxed out their 401k options, and they want to save more, but they make too much to contribute directly to a Roth. There is still the Roth two-step, the backdoor Roth. And assuming you do not have any traditional IRAs, no simples, no SEPs, no traditional IRAs, no rollover IRAs, no contributory IRAs, traditional, in your name, it's a viable option.
So explain very quickly how to do that.
Well, we lost the ability to contribute to deductible traditional IRAs if our income was over certain thresholds, and that threshold is lower than the threshold for contributing to a Roth IRA.
I think it was 116.
Yes, it was, instead of 208.
Because I just looked it up.
Yes.
Yeah. 218 is the top end, by the way. 208 starts the phase out for married, but okay, yes.
But so what you can do is, if I have no other traditional IRAs in my name, and I won't for the entire year, or I should say I won't on December 31st. That's the key date.
Yeah.
I can contribute to, now this is where people get confused too. I said there was a limit for being able to deduct a contribution to a traditional IRA, not contribute to a traditional. Anybody who has a job can contribute to a traditional IRA. The question is whether or not you can deduct that contribution.
Yep.
And in my humble opinion, if you cannot do the backdoor Roth, there's no reason to do a non-deductible contribution to a traditional IRA. But if you can do the backdoor Roth and want to, you have no other traditional IRAs, you contribute that $6,500, $7,500 if you're 50 and older, to a traditional IRA. It's not deductible. 100% of the money in that and every other IRA in your name, because that's the only IRA in your name, is after-tax money. Then you turn around and you convert it to a traditional or to a Roth IRA. There is no income limit on who can convert. So you take all this after-tax money and convert it to a Roth IRA, and you pay no taxes on the conversion. So you, step one, open a traditional IRA. Step two, convert it to a Roth IRA. Roth two-step. Now you've got $6,500, $7,500 if you're 50
Which
or older.
is exactly the same as if you had just contributed.
Yes and no.
Other than the result is the same.
You do. It is a conversion.
Yes, it
so
is.
You do not have access to that money for 5 years. Unlike a contribution where if I change my mind, I can take my contribution back out.
Yeah, that's true.
You cannot. You've got a 5-year waiting period before you can get that money back out without a penalty.
But all else being equal,
Yeah.
it's the same thing.
But now you have $7,500 or $6,500, depending on age, in a Roth IRA.
Or however much you want to put in.
Yeah,
That's
you don't
just
have to
the
put
limit.
the whole thing. That's
No,
the limit for each
that's
year.
That's the limit, yeah. So it's a good planning tool. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, and the reason we thought it was going to go away is by definition, you've got to be over certain income levels.
Yeah.
216,000 for the 18,000.
208 to 218. It
For
phases
the married
out.
couple.
Yeah.
And that would not be considered, low income, I don't think.
No.
Depending on where you live, it might be considered middle class.
It may not go as far as you think it would in certain areas. True,
but that's a nice income for most people. Think that's a pretty good income. So that's where when they start talking about taxing the rich and doing all that may be one of the first things they try to look at. But up until now, they've kept pushing it to the back, and they're pushing for more Roth. In fact, starting next year, anybody who is 50 and older who's contributing to a 401k, if their income is over $150,000, the year before, that catch-up contribution that we're allowed to do, that $7,500, must go to Roth. It cannot go to a traditional 401k. It's got to go to the Roth side of the 401k. Up until recently, all matching contributions had to go.
Wait, you said it has to go to the Roth 401k?
Yeah, if I'm doing because that's the Roth or the 401k catch-up I'm talking about.
Yeah, but what if their company doesn't offer a Roth 401k?
Well, that's where it gets. If they don't offer a Roth 401k where you can do the catch-up contributions to it, then nobody, even the people with lower incomes, can do a catch-up in that company. So
you can't do a catch-up at all then?
If you do not offer the Roth option for the people at 150 or more, then you do not offer. Then you cannot offer catch-up contributions to anybody. So you got somebody making $100,000.
I guess I forgot that.
You got somebody who's making $100,000. Maybe they're the lower wage earner of the two, but they can afford to save a big chunk of their income. They want to save $30,000 into their 401k, but they're not limited to the rules, so they can make the catch-up contribution to their traditional side of the house. Then you've got somebody who's making $155,000, and they want to do a catch-up contribution, but this company doesn't offer a Roth 401k.
So now
they either need to offer the Roth 401k or nobody can contribute that extra $7,500.
So it's no soup for you.
But
that's and not more yet though.
That starts in 2024. But more and more companies, if they have a 401k, it's not that much more to put a Roth on the side of it, especially if the company's got 20, 40, 50 or more employees.
Yeah,
they're probably going to have both traditional 401k and Roth 401k options. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but we were talking about the ability, them pushing more Roth. It was in the past, matching contributions had to go to the traditional. Maybe I was putting my entire $22,000, $30,000 into the Roth side of my 401k, but the matching contribution had to go to the traditional side.
By law.
That was the only available option.
Yeah.
Starting next year, that has the option at your choice of going either traditional or Roth. Now, don't get the idea that it goes into Roth without costing you something today. It's not like they're going to make a contribution to the Roth and, I wasn't paying tax on the matching contribution before. I won't pay tax. You're going to pay tax on it now.
But it's a 401k. Isn't it fully deductible? That's why I'm doing a 401k, not the Roth.
If you go into the traditional side.
Not the Roth.
If you elect to have the matching contribution go into the Roth side, your income just went up by that amount of money for this year.
This has been great stuff. If this is the answer to the question goes back to which was should you do 401k deductible now and pay tax later, or should I do Roth now, pay tax now, and grow tax free? It depends. But even though the answer is it depends, I hope you folks have gotten some direction as to what situation you're in.
And if you want more direction, send an email. And with your specific situation, we can get into it.
We can. In fact, that's what the Lucia Capital Group advisors do all the time with their clients. 800-644-1150, the number, 800-644-1150. You want somebody to worry about this stuff for you and give you your options and say, this is what you should really be doing, and here's why you should be doing that. It's not just you should be doing this. They need to tell you why, and that's what they do. Here's why we're recommending this. And if you don't understand why or you need some more explanation, then they're going to explain it again, and they're going to give you, make sure that you understand, because communication is key. Again, the folks at Lucia Capital Group can help you out, 800-644-1150. You can also go online, find a lot of this information at luciacap.com, LUCIACAP.com. Blog posts, videos, all that other stuff, articles, links, etc. They're at luciacap.com. Subscribe to our podcast. We would love it if you did. We get more subscribers every single week, and it's nice to see that number go up. You can go to Spotify, of course, and Apple has got our podcast, so check us out there any which way you can. Make sure you listen to this podcast on a regular basis. Professor Plum, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
As always, much appreciated. And folks, if you have any other questions, as we said, you can go to luciacap.com ask us a question and say, hey, I'd really like you to talk about this. And if we're able to do that, we will certainly do that. For Professor Rick Plum, I'm your podcast host, Johnny Dean. Thanks so much for listening. We will talk to you again next week. The information provided should not be considered specific tax, legal, or investment advice and is not specific to any individual's personal circumstances. Each taxpayer should seek independent advice from a tax professional based on his or her individual circumstances. You should always seek counsel of the appropriate advisor prior to making any investment decision. All investments are subject to risk, including the loss of principal. This material was gathered from sources believed to be reliable. However, its accuracy cannot be guaranteed. No client or prospective client should assume that the information presented serves as the receipt of or a substitute for personalized advice from Lucia Capital Group or from any other investment professional. Traditional IRA account owners have considerations to make before performing a Roth IRA conversion. These primarily include income tax consequences on the converted amount in the year of conversion, withdrawal limitations from a Roth IRA, and income limitations for future contributions to a Roth IRA. In addition, if you are required to take a required minimum distribution or RMD in the year you convert, you must do so before converting to a Roth IRA. IRA withdrawals will be taxed at ordinary income rates. Withdrawals prior to age 59.5 may also be subject to a 10% penalty tax. Roth IRA distributions of principal from a Roth IRA are tax-free. However, any earnings will be taxed at ordinary income rates, and a 10% penalty tax will apply if withdrawn prior to age 59.5 or within 5 years of the date the Roth IRA was established, whichever is longer. Examples cited are hypothetical, are for illustrative purposes only, are not guaranteed, and subject to potential federal and state law amendments. There is no guarantee that you will achieve the results discussed or illustrated. The information provided is based on current laws, which are subject to change at any time. Lucia Capital Group is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency. Social Security rules can be complex. For more information about Social Security benefits, visit the SSA website at ssa.gov or call 800-772-1213 to speak with an SSA representative. Rick Plum is a registered representative with and security and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor and member FINRA SIPC. The investment professionals are affiliated with LPL Financial and are conducting business using the name Lucia Capital Group, a separate entity from LPL Financial.